Welcome back to Question Period on this Christmas Eve. 2023 saw some significant movement when it comes to political party support in Canada. In the second half of the year, the Conservatives have led the Liberals in polling with a two-digit lead as housing and the cost of living became top-of-mind concerns for Canadians. That sliding support prompted questions over whether Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will continue to lead the Liberals into the next election, which is currently scheduled for fall of 2025. Meanwhile, the NDP's deal to keep the Liberals in power shows no signs of falling apart, but despite policy wins like dental care, the party remains roughly where it was in those same polls about a year ago. Our Sunday strategy session with Kathleen Monk, Corey Teneycke, and Scott Reid is back to grade the party leaders. Kathleen, I'll start with you, and we'll start with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. What grade would you give him for this year?
I'd give him an incomplete, or maybe he should take a redo. I think, he's had a tough year. There's been lots of stuff thrown at him, obviously, from the Rouleau Commission all the way to he's had multiple significant visits when President Biden came, obviously President Zelensky, but incomplete because he didn't get the job done. And I think that if they had a chance, they would redo this year, and they would redo getting out in front of Pierre Poilievre, not letting him have that surge that he saw in the late spring and through the summer. And frankly, maybe doing that cabinet shuffle that they did in late August a little bit earlier to get some of that movement on housing. So an incomplete I would give to Trudeau.
I guess the grand reshuffle. I forgot about it. It's been so long. Scott, what grade would you give the Prime Minister?
A D for damn. 2023 was a live in misery. Look, we've heard some of them, but the really inexact and somewhat off-key response to the affordability crisis, the giant cabinet shuffle that wasn't a complete failure to reset the government and to reorient its message and focus. I think there was the many months spent doing a very weak and imponderable job of issue managing the foreign interference issue. I just think, frankly, it's been a real challenge of a year for the Prime Minister. The best thing you can say about it is that he got through it. He did not see his caucus rise up and rebel. He did not see the NDP walk away from him. So he has the benefit of time. But what he needs in 2024 is a year not one bit like 2023.
Damn, what do you really think, Scott? Corey, what grade would you give the Prime Minister?
Well, we're not on the curse of politics, so I won't tell you what the F stands for. But it's not a good word. I think I would agree with Scott. This is a year that they've got to really regret. Probably a more honest grade would be a D. He really has not been on his game. We've seen Trudeau in the past be able to campaign, to be able to really drive a message forward, but he hasn't been successful in doing that over the past year. They've sort of been tripped up through a series of crises, both small and large, some of their own making, some coming to them from abroad. Thinking of the foreign electoral interference, obviously that's something that was foisted upon them, but their handling of it was very ham-fisted, and I think tripped them up a lot. I think their decision, as we talked about earlier, around the reversal in the carbon tax, handed a huge gift to Poilievre. And I think the decisions, and ultimately it's the Prime Minister who makes the decisions around, whether or not you're going to run ads and what the overall themes of a campaign are going to be. The decision not to actually engage in the fight when the Conservatives are around leadership, I think was really a big miss. So I think he performed very poorly. Now the upside is you can only do better when you've been graded that poorly over the past year. If he is going to stay on, which he's saying he's going to, you can only hope that it's going to be a better year for him than the past one has been, because it's hard to imagine one that would have gone worse.
I might save the predictions about whether the Prime Minister stays for the next round. Kathleen, your grade for the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre.
For sure he gets an A. I mean, he gets an A because his fundraising numbers are through the roof. He survived his first national convention. He had that amazing summer campaign that he rolled out with his ads. So he's doing well. He gets an A. But the A also stands for a couple of other things. It stands for anger, the anger he's mining and the grievance mining he's doing with Canadians, and how he's not really actually proposing policies going forward. He's just kind of making people angry and tapping into that. Also arrogance. There was a poll out recently that said 45% of Canadians think of Pierre Poilievre as arrogant. And so that's a problem for him. And these are the things that he has to work on. Teachers always give a grade, but they always say the student could learn by doing X, Y, and Z. Well, he could learn to dial back the arrogance and dial back the anger in 2024.
Scott, what's your grade for Pierre Poilievre?
I'm going to give him a B plus, and what keeps him from an A, and it's for all the same reasons. I mean, it's been in many ways a blessed political year for him. You know, you saw fundraising numbers, you've seen his the advertising campaign that's really introduced him to Canadians in a completely different light as a family man and so forth. I just think that it's been a really outstanding, strong year for him. The reason it's a B plus instead of an A, from my perspective, is I was really struck by the ad campaign. Like, I thought it was really top drawer. And Pierre Poilievre, particularly in the fall, sometimes undermined it with his own conduct, with his own character, with the image that he himself projected. Now, I think that the media buy is probably more powerful, but he should be working in concert, not in contradiction to his own advertising campaign, about the kind of person and the kind of Prime Minister he'll be. So that's what keeps him from an A. I'm a stern teacher, and I'm looking for more from young student Poilievre in 2024.
Your face looks incredibly stern, yes. Corey, your grade for Mr. Poilievre.
Well, if you don't get an A from going from basically dead even to north of 15 points in terms of a lead, I don't know what you get an A for. Like, it's clearly an A. That's a phenomenal year by anyone's measure. And I think a lot of the credit obviously goes to Poilievre, but I think to his team as well. I think they've acted with a lot of discipline. That's often a problem within the Conservative Party and federally and within their caucus. There can be a lot of mavericks who want to go off in different areas and disrupt the message in doing so. And they've really, by Conservative Party standards, over the last couple of leaders, really had a pretty clean year in terms of that. So, good marks for discipline, good marks for strategy, good marks for performance. I think he's had a number of viral media moments, which every leader is hoping to have, but he's had a number of them. So, across the board, I got to say, he's had a heck of a year.
Okay, our last leader, Jagmeet Singh with the NDP. Kathleen, your grade for him.
Well, in the United Kingdom, when they do grades, they give grades of distinction or grades of merit. So I think certainly Jagmeet Singh will get a distinction or a merit on his policy work. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. The dental care policy is historic. It is unprecedented that a fourth party in Parliament could actually get something like this done. I think it will have impact in terms of the expansion of healthcare for decades. That said, I'm going to give a B minus to Mr. Singh. And why is that? Because I'm not sure if he's actually getting the credit he deserves for it. I don't know. His fundraising numbers are not like the other two parties. He needs to get that lift up. And actually, there are some rumblings in caucus in terms of that could bleed into 2024. Some challenges of keeping the caucus together around the confidence and supply agreement. So there's still a lot of work for Mr. Singh to be done, but I don't want to overstate the importance. I want to overstate the importance of dental care and why that's so historic.
Okay, Scott, your grade for Mr. Singh.
Look, I'm bringing the hammer down, man. I'm giving him a D. And the reason is that this is about politics and political leadership. If we were having a class about can you get a dental program or execute parliamentary deals, then he would get an A+. But ultimately it's about, are you positioning your party for success in the future? How is it that the Liberals can fall so far in the polls, can be at such a lackluster place, and the NDP aren't able to lunch on that? There's something about Jagmeet Singh. He isn't tracking with people. He hasn't tracked with people. Everyone says he's a nice guy. Everyone talks about him getting results in Parliament. None of it matters a damn. D, he's not getting the job done as a leader.
He does have good numbers himself, Scott, Corey, which is so interesting. But to Scott's point, it has not translated to a boost at all for the party.
Yeah, he gets a solid C because he's been basically stalled at in the polls. He's been a pretty consistent 18% throughout the entire year. Maybe a little bit of a boost towards the end of the year, but always kind of within the margin of error of that 18%. And what's more, I think he's got no game in Quebec, and it's very difficult to see any path to the NDP having a more prominent place in the Parliament without actually getting some game back in Quebec. He's not been able to put that together. And I think he's bleeding part of his coalition to Poilievre, who's been clearly making a play for blue-collar workers, similar to what we've seen Ford and other Conservative parties do. and he has not been responding to it. And I think part of it is his personal style. I think maybe for Christmas he should be, asking for a modest suit from Moores and maybe a Swatch or something. Ditch the Rolexes, ditch the $5,000 suits, and start playing towards some of that traditional NDP base. Because if you don't start doing that, Poilievre's going to come and sweep it away from you.